Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of the Trailer Park League Fantasy Football Podcast, where my guests and I will be breaking down this week's auction draft results. So, joining me tonight is Colin Doyle. Doyle,
Hey,
how's it
hey,
going?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Uh, after this auction, I don't know if I ever want to do another auction. Although I kept voting yes to do auctions.
It's
Sorry,
the
Nick.
only one left. We gotta
Yeah,
keep
it's
it alive.
yeah, and it was an interesting auction. I'll kind of tell my backstory of what was going on. I was at, a friend's party. We were over at a house, daughter in the pool, bunch of kids. So I'm like, we need to get home. 6:30 hits. We haven't left yet because she doesn't want to leave. So I'm trying to,
Yeah.
you know, I drafted Jalen Hurts, my first player behind the wheel of a car. Don't draft and drive, people. It's dangerous.
Drive. Highly
Um,
irresponsible.
highly irresponsible. Then once we got home, I probably was dealing with the biggest meltdown my toddler's ever had, and was trying to draft during that. So it was interesting, but at least I drafted better than the auto draft. So
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds like excuses for a bad draft for me. I don't know. I guess we'll dig into it a little bit, but certainly
funny enough,
better
I
than
still
the
don't
auto
dislike my team.
draft. That was rough. Poor Drum. He's gonna have a long year, I think. He might just quit. We'll see.
So I'll start showing the ranks I had here. I spent a lot of time doing this before the draft, and then unfortunately I didn't really get to dive in and use this
Wasted.
much.
Yeah,
But so we can talk about keepers first. I
sure.
have the kind of keepers here bolded in yellow. So Christian McCaffrey kept for 49. We'll talk about my values and how off I was on some of these values. To me, this was like where I expected a lot of the top players to go.
Yeah,
In years past, I feel like that was pretty reasonable as far as like where our top players would go with being super
sure.
flex. I had that tier of quarterbacks, up at $65. So I figured McCaffrey in that 49 range made sense. I thought it was good.
Yep.
So then I had Kyler Murray, CJ Stroud as keepers. My computer's yelling at me.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
I got to plug in. You can chat for a sec.
Cool. Super expected. Not awkward.
Low battery.
Yeah,
Here, I'm just plugging my laptop in. Yeah. So who was your keeper? I don't remember.
let's see. I ended up going with Nico Collins.
Yeah, Nico Collins
Yeah.
for $1.
Yeah. So I had him for $1, I think. I was kind of in between him and I had Jonathan Taylor for $32 as well. So it's kind of on the fence about that one for a while, but ultimately ended up sticking with Nico Collins because I just can't seem to pass up a $1 keeper if I think it's a good option. So I like having the bigger bankroll to deal with.
Right. In general, I'm always going with the lowest price keeper I can find because what fun is it to spend $40 before we even start?
Yeah.
So I was going to say here, we had me and newcomer Scott, who I thought probably had those were my two best values at keeper were for Kyler and for Stroud.
Yeah.
I'm obviously probably people are surprised to see that I had Kyler ranked basically exactly the same as Stroud as far as value goes.
Sure.
That's a little bold. So one advantage Drum had, even though he was auto drafting, was he did have a very good keeper in Jordan Love for 20. Thought that was pretty solid value for him.
Yeah.
Kyle kept Jahmyr Gibbs for 31 because he's a Lion slappy. It was okay value by what I had here.
Yeah.
You had Nico, and so I thought Nico was a really good keeper. $1 I had him as here in the 30 range.
Yeah, I mean that feels about right.
Yeah, Kevin had Kyron. I probably would have kept Puka Nacua if I was him. He
Get
had
him for like $1 or something.
Nacua for 5 or Kyron for 3.
Okay. Eh,
And I'm
yeah,
just higher on
both.
Nacua and lower on Kyron than most, but
Yeah, I guess it depends. I mean, there may be people who think Puka just was a fluky season. He'll just fall back down. There's some people out there in that camp. I don't know
yeah.
if Kevin put that much thought into it, but it's
I
out there.
think Kevin's thought process was just running backs are typically harder to come by than receivers in our draft traditionally. So I think he
Mhm.
just decided he wanted to secure that running back over the receiver. Then we had Ayuk, Achan. I don't know how the fuck to say this guy's name. Every time somebody says it, it's different. And then here's McBride and Laporta, where I had both in the same range here. But yeah, so we can talk about my values here a little bit. I was like, yeah, everyone's going to go in the 60s. I think the highest price player went for, I don't even know. I'd have to look at, I think it was Mahomes, right? Mahomes went 52. And I think Allen went for 48.
Yeah, that was the first pick. We talked about that.
Is that everybody? 3 for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I kind of, how do I scroll over?
It'd be nice if you could sort it with best value, not just the teams, but
yeah. And
yeah,
I think that was, and Lamar went for 50. Yeah.
So I think
for 50. Based on that, I was very happy that I got Jalen Hurts at 43 is where I got him.
Yeah.
I felt like and that's who I drafted via Carr. So I'm glad I got him. And then I'm trying to remember if any running backs went for more than. Yeah, I think the highest running back was 49. I paid 49 for Bijan Robinson.
Yeah,
I kind of wanted. I went in the
right behind him at 48, 48, right?
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, I went into the draft and I knew, with having Kyler as a pretty cheap keeper, my plan was that I was going to pay up for one of the top 3 quarterbacks. That's kind of what I wanted to do. In my opinion, the top 3, as you see here, were Hurts, Mahomes, and Allen.
Yeah. In that order specifically?
No. I mean, I had them all kind of. I had them all at the same value. So basically, I kind of just valued all 3 of them pretty equally, and I would have tried to take whoever I could get for the cheapest, which is what I ended up doing. So I feel like having Kyler and Hurts, I just have like a big advantage at quarterback. Like I just have 2 guys that I don't really have to think about it until Kyler gets hurt, maybe.
Right.
Hoping this is the year. He's never not gotten hurt.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. So, but one takeaway that I had was, man, wide receivers went cheap. This is where I was mad that I was not able to really be fully paying attention to what was going on early, because there's like no way I would have not bid. I'm trying to see, there's a couple that I saw where I was like, oh my God, like, like Jefferson. There's no way I would not have bid
that was
at least
weird,
another
actually.
dollar on, even like
AJ Brown was right with
he's
him.
the main AJ Brown at 28,
Yep.
and things end up happening where in typical fashion of an auction where, people, you always have to be conscious of tiers and who's needs stuff. And then you have the situation we had where all of a sudden Marvin Harrison goes for more than every wide receiver ahead of him. And all of a sudden Marvin Harrison's the highest priced wide receiver in our entire auction.
Yep. We had a similar issue with quarterback
that I missed out on because I was able to get one early.
Yeah.
And I've determined I never want to be that guy that's sitting there waiting. And I do remember, because I'm trying to see Garrett Wilson. So I was bidding on Garrett Wilson with Jeff. And I remember I was thinking, like, I could bid another dollar on Garrett Wilson. I was like, but Marvin Harrison's still there. And I have Kyler Murray, so I can stack him. I think I'll let Wilson go and I'll pivot and I'll draft Harrison. Not really
Yeah.
being conscious in the moment, realizing like, oh wait, after Harrison, there's like that's where like there's a big drop off. I think
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
far as receivers.
I I feel
as
like
receivers.
kind of another weird thing happened with those like top couple tier receivers as well, because I feel like those guys came up like after a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of running backs went. So like a lot of teams had spent money already,
Yeah,
and you know nobody was quite ready to like buy their wide receiver one for their team yet. It seemed like so they're just kind of letting these guys go, thinking I got my eyes on somebody else. That's kind of that's what I was thinking.
yeah.
And,
We're
and
the
that's
teams
what
that had already bought the teams that already bought a high price quarterback were kind of like, all right, I spent my money early. I don't want to
yeah.
do this. And the teams that didn't have a quarterback yet were kind of like, I got to save my money for a quarterback. So
Yep.
then it kind of
Yep.
got to this middle ground of like wide receiver being kind of cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
That
definitely
makes
where I was
sense.
at because I ended up with Josh Allen at 48, and I knew I wanted to put some money into my second quarterback, but I knew it wasn't going to come up till later. And I knew and I had Nico Collins for $1, so I was like, okay, well, I want another good receiver, but I I don't have the budget for it. So I was like, I can't go much over like $20. And even though these guys went like, you know, high 20s, I feel like I should have just pulled the trigger on one of them, but we didn't get there, unfortunately.
Okay. So should we talk about Jaden Daniels for $40?
Yeah, I guess we should. That is one of those unfortunate, like he's the last, quarterback on the board that's got that upside, in my opinion. And also CJ's opinion, apparently, because we got into quite the battle over him, and he ended up going for $40, way more than I thought he was going for. I was hoping to get him for like 30, and then
Yeah.
I wanted that extra $10 to put into another receiver. That was my plan. But my whole strategy coming into the draft was like a little bit different anyway. With this one, I decided like I just want to go get the guys that I want.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything else but that. So, and I'm going to try to spread the money out, but I want to get these guys. So, like Josh Allen, Rashad White, Devon Smith, Kincaid, Jaden Daniels, all those guys I had on my list. DeAndre Swift was kind of a impulse purchase. I don't even know if I meant to do that, but other than that, like a lot of these guys were ones that I just think they're going to have good years. I have them ranked higher than a lot of people. So that was all my strategy is. Historically, when I've done that, it has not worked out for me. But
Right.
coming off a championship win in this league, I felt like let's give it a try.
So, yeah. Is there any other players on your team that you felt like you overpaid for or got good deals on? Or
I mean, Josh Allen for 48. He was the first player up, and a lot of times, first player up is like historically a good deal.
Yeah, because people are a little hesitant. Like, they want somebody else to set the market. They don't want to be like overpay on the first guy and then realize, oh crap, I overspent, and everyone else is going for cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was happy to get him right there. And then actually Rashad White for 35, I thought was all right. Chris apparently said he was trying to bid me up on that one, and apparently he lost internet connection, so he was texting me about that later. Not so happy. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, that's where I think some of my rankings. It was my first year kind of trying to build this separately, and I just had like a sum at the bottom that I was trying to add everything up to 2,400. And I think I was off on some of my like I overvalued a lot of the early stuff, like especially some of like probably players outside of the top 10. Because I'm looking here and my value I had on Rashad White was $9.
Wow. All right.
I don't really like him, so that plays into it, but I think I was probably a little low kind of his value here.
Yeah,
And at some point I did kind of just scrap this and I just used it as like a reference point to like, all right, I'll look and see what I put here and then see what happens after that.
sure.
Um, so I'll kind of look at my team too and say a couple of things that, so I was a lot higher on Najee last week than I am right now, because now it's sounding more like Jaylen Warren is trending towards being healthy for week 1.
Yep.
And that was maybe not the case a few days ago. It sounded like he was maybe going to miss week 1 and have kind of a lingering hammy going into the season,
Sure.
which to me was like, okay, I want to really target Najee. I think he could have a big year if Warren's, already hurt going into the season, and maybe, hamstring injuries, they can just kind of fester and
Sure. Yeah, they
linger.
could linger through
So,
the whole season sometimes.
yeah. So I like I said, with getting Kyler for 6, and I had budgeted like 65 for one of the top quarterbacks and got one for 43. I felt like
Yeah.
I did have some flexibility with what I was trying to do later.
Mhm.
Um,
I was particularly upset about your DJ Moore pickup. That is, him for $22 was really where I was hoping to be. I was hoping to actually draft him, and right around that range. That was my goal. But that Jaden Daniels pick really
yeah.
messed that up for me, and I actually did not
And
have enough money at that point in the draft.
yeah. And that was kind of where I got to the point where I was like, I need to start spending money, because I was like one of the guys that had a lot of money. So then I was able to kind of be picky with guys I wanted. And I do like DJ Moore. He's just very consistent, and he just,
Yep.
he year to year, he just always gets targeted, always.
Yeah,
So move on to Rashi Rice. I got for 15, and to me this was a big discount. I really like Rashi Rice. I think if
Yeah.
he didn't have the suspension rumors looming, that he potentially should be like a top 12 receiver. Like, based on what he did last year, he's in an explosive offense. He was just getting peppered with targets late in the season. So they added some weapons, but none of them really do what he does. So
Yep.
they're kind of all like Mecole Hardman upgrades as opposed to
Sure.
Rashi Rice, who does a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I like Xavier Worthy. I think that he could have a very good year as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes sense. Rashi Rice with those suspensions, whatever, looming, definitely got the discount there. And I think he's like the almost cliche year 2 wide receiver breakout candidate,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
So, but and it's totally realistic, I think.
So we'll get to Christian Kirk, who was I just went to bid an extra $1, and the drum auto bid had bumped the bid up from like $2 to 10, and then I just bid one extra $1 thinking I was bidding like 4 when really I bid 11. So
that one hurts.
I do like Christian Kirk. I just don't think I would have paid 11 for him. But and the fact that I actually had Brian Thomas as like one of my top targets I really wanted to get.
Yep.
And so now I have 2 different Jacksonville receivers.
Yeah.
So that was one of 2 mistakes I made. We'll get to the second one in a minute here. Big Ferguson, I kind of wanted one of the top tight ends, but if I didn't get one of them, then with McBride was really the one I wanted, but he was kept, which that was my fault. I almost like talked Nick into keeping Trey McBride when he wasn't going to, even though I wanted him. So anybody that thinks I like scam, I talked myself out of getting a player I wanted because I was like, Nick, are you sure you want to keep that person? That doesn't make sense. There's somebody that he probably didn't want to keep.
Probably learn your lesson on that one.
Yeah. Like Josh Palmer, I think he could be their wide receiver 1 in the Chargers.
Yeah, I was looking to pick him up, and you had one more dollar than me right there, so I was bummed about that one.
I always like being like the last guy with like a $3 bid versus a $2 bid. Where it's like, all right, I can beat these guys. I can get that last dollar. So then I like Tony Pollard. People have been hyping up Tajay Spears, but preseason snaps is like the only thing I look at in the preseason. And Tony Pollard was basically on the field with Will Levis like 90% of the time
Yeah,
versus Tajay Spears not getting as much run. So
yeah. I,
only $6. It was
yeah. It's not like you paid too much for him. I am not a Tony Pollard fan. I don't think that. I think he's kind of on his way out of the league potentially, in my opinion. But I think Tajay Spears just might be the better football player. So
it's possible.
there's two sides on that one for sure.
Yeah. So talking about Javante, I remember when I bid on Javante, I looked to see what everyone's max bid was. Other than Drum, I kind of ignored his one because I knew the auto bid wasn't really going to do anything. And I saw the next highest max bid was like 7. So I'm like, I'll just bid $8 on Javante and not even, and then just kind of lock this up and say, all right, let's move on.
Yeah,
I like him. I think you could think. I mean, you're a Broncos guy. We'll see what you think.
Yeah, I think that was a good buy. That $8 is a good deal for him, and I think he's going to have a good year. People are down on him, like the whole market in general, especially for dynasty, is super down on him right now. Which I don't buy into. I think he's still got it, and I think that Sean Payton was intentionally just giving the other running backs like the spotlight for the whole preseason and all training camp and everything as like a way to like, oh, just don't pay attention to him because we're going to feed him.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hoping for anyway.
Yeah, I mean he's now 2 years removed from the ACL, so he should be. That a lot of times with running backs, that first year back, they still kind of are limited, or like they don't do stuff till the second half of the season, and then that next year is when they really are able to come back.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I was looking in the one dynasty league. I was considering just floating you a little Javante offer just to see if I could get a little nibble, but I was like, I don't think Doyle's gonna nibble.
Yeah,
I think he'll he'll spit that back out.
Probably not. You can always try.
Yeah. So then we'll get to mistake number 2, which is when I was running back and forth and I saw running back Cincinnati and I threw a bid in. And then I realized, oh shit, I just bid on Zach Moss, not Chase Brown. Chase Brown is who I wanted, who I targeted, who I had as like a circle I want to get him. And then I realized, oh shit, Zach Moss. And then I didn't have money to buy Chase Brown because I wasted the money on Zach Moss. So
yeah, that was,
I think that dropped me down to only having the $3 bid for Palmer. And
yeah, you can kind of thank me for that one because I actually put Zach Moss up because I wanted somebody to spend money on him before Chase Brown came up.
Chase Brown, yeah.
And I missed both of them, or him anyway. So, but at least you got stuck with Moss.
Yeah. So, and then it auto picked me Dalton Schultz because I wasn't paying attention when it was my, and I already dropped him, so I don't really care about that.
Yeah, same for me with the 80 Mitchell there at the end. But I don't that I dislike 80 Mitchell, but I already taken dropped down, so I just don't want both of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So were there any other teams here that you remember standing out to you, or
yeah, actually, you know what? I'll call out Scott. I think first year in the league, I think he put together a pretty good team. Actually, I like it.
Yeah, I kind of was in agreement there. Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, his is one of the more solid teams. Yeah, he seems to have a top guy at each position.
Yep.
Some decent. He's got 2 solid quarterbacks. He's got like 2 guys at every position that you're good with, and then Chris Godwin's probably a good flyer late.
Yeah, and who else? I mean, Jalen Warren, $4 like that. I thought that was pretty good. And then also Jackson Smith, Nishigba. That he might actually have a pretty good year. So he was somebody I was trying to target as well. I like that pick.
Yeah. Yeah, and so actually, Kevin, I don't mind your team other than the fact that TJ Hawkinson's probably not going to play for like 6 weeks, so you do need another tight end.
You like Musgrave?
Musgrave's all right. I have him in Dynasty.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams is your first quarterback, and then Tua, that should be solid. Bo Nix is a third, so you have three quarterbacks. I like Puka as a value there at 29.
Yeah.
He
I
and
probably
then with
wouldn't have paid
Adams,
23 for Adams, but
yeah, and so Puka falls into the category of like if I was really engaged when that was going on, I would have been bidding more on Puka than 29. So
yeah.
it's like all the teams that got these guys in like under $30 that I felt like should have been. Wait, first I thought that was CeeDee Lamb at 27. My eyes are messing. Chris Olave's photo looks a lot like CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, for sure.
He's over there. But
Where'd
so
you go?
yeah, Kevin,
37?
yeah, I think he went 37.
So like basically the highest wide receiver minus the
Marvin
whoopsie of
Harrison.
Marvin Harrison.
And then yeah, Amon-Ra also went for 37. Kyle, of
Yeah.
course, Kyle's buying Lions. Kyle, do you know what a running back is? I'm just curious. So you have Jahmyr Gibbs, you have Blake Corum, J.K. Dobbins, Damian Pierce.
Ouch.
But no, Kevin, I do like Jerome Ford as a sleeper on your bench. Although the fact that you paid $16 for Nick Chubb is absolutely insane to me. Like,
Yeah,
that
I don't
is
know how that
that is
happened.
wild.
Yeah. But I guess he's got
He's
the
starting
whole
here on the pup
backfield
list.
locked down there. So
Yeah,
he'll figure it out, maybe.
he's a little thin at running back. But I think one of the best values of the entire draft, we haven't talked about it yet. Andy, I hate the fact that you paid 40 for Harrison. You have Devin Singletary as your RB2, who I'm not very high on, but you may have gotten the single best value of the entire draft, Anthony Richardson, for $28. I was itching to bid on this, but I already had Kyler and Jalen Hurts, and was just like, I can't justify $30 on another quarterback. But I was like, my hand was like, I was like holding it from bidding because I'm like, ow, somebody.
Yeah,
That could just be an absolute explosion pick.
Yep. I thought the same thing. I was holding out for Daniels at the time, and I was like, dang, he's right in that range of where I'm looking at for that QB2 anyway, and he still has that upside. He scares me though. He scares me a lot more than Jaden Daniels does. But
yeah,
that's if I was able to pick him up for that price, then I think I'd like my team a lot better.
But Andy secured him though with getting a really solid third quarterback in Daniel Jones.
Yeah, woo! He got Penix there all the way at the end.
Oh yeah,
so
Penix.
Maybe
I'm a Penix believer.
No, I'm not sure about this year though.
I know, me neither. Yeah, nothing else really stood out to me. I mean, I feel like I said the same thing about Kyle's team last year. He had like no running backs, and his team somehow like managed to make it work. I think CJ put together a decent team again. Except he doesn't. Does he? Yeah, he has. I mean, he's got. Yeah, I like his team.
I'm not huge on his running backs. Kamara and Connor for his top two, but Spears I'm a fan of. Also, I like Rico Dowdle. You can write it down because I think he's the RB1 and he's gonna have a good year. And I don't know why people aren't talking about him.
Yeah. Come on, Zeke, man. It's 2016 all over again.
He's over. He's just there so he can retire with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, I said I liked Jeff's team, and then the more I looked at it, the more I didn't like it. I mostly just liked that he has Lamar Jackson, Justin Jefferson, and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
I feel like this could be finally the year where Kelsey's not like the tight end one. He really wasn't that. He was good last year, but he wasn't really that good until he kind of went off in the playoffs.
Sure.
Kind of, but that doesn't really help. Doesn't help you in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I think
partying with Taylor Swift in Brazil. So
you're right. I think he's probably still going to show up in those bigger moments, but he's. I feel like he's not likely to see the same kinds of volume that he's always seen.
Right.
Especially with some of the new receivers they got there.
Like Robert has a pretty typical Robert team.
I would agree.
Dak, he's got Josh Jacobs, James Cook, Ayuk, Jamar Chase, Pitts, Diggs. Just a pretty solid starting lineup across the board. Trevor Lawrence, and then a bench with some guys that could be good or it could
Yeah,
be dropping.
yeah.
But
He seems to like target those guys that like are like, yeah, it's a value, but it's not the hype pick, it's not the guy you
you,
want. It's
it's as I call them no blood flow picks, right?
yeah.
You get nothing going down. Like
Nothing's twitching over here, man.
they don't excite you, but they're going to be solid.
Not the sexy pick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we know Nick still loves Derrick Henry, so he's got him.
Yeah.
And he's got my boy Pacheco, who I couldn't justify paying more than 40 when I already had Bijan at 49. I mean, I can't have Pacheco in every league. I just can't. You can't do that. You have to kind of diversify. So I figured I'd let somebody else have him here.
Yeah, fair enough. I feel like this is actually a pretty Nick team as well. Like a little bit weak at quarterback, pretty strong at running back, and like solid, like classic receivers that just perennial 1,000-yard.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. I mean, yeah, we've seen him win a dynasty superflex league basically like without a quarterback. So
yeah. I mean, like
we know Nick doesn't really value
it's not bad
in superflex.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've kind of gone through some of that, found some values, found some. We weren't gonna talk about Jerome's team because there's nothing to talk about. Like
there's just unfortunate. That's what you get for hanging out with the family and not committing some time to fantasy football. Come on, bro.
And so actually, I will talk about his team for one moment. George Pickens. I do remember. I basically like pitied you, and was like the auto auction had bid Pickens to the value that Sleeper had for him, and I was like, I would bid another dollar. I'm like, but I should probably just let Drum have like somebody that I think is decent. So I didn't bid the extra dollar. So if Pickens goes ballistic, you're welcome. That's all I'll say. that I saved my extra dollar. Could have spent the extra dollar on Pickens instead of Christian Kirk over here or something. But
yeah, right.
So, all right. Any other thoughts? Any predictions for the season or?
Ooh, predictions. Let's see. I guess I'll say Scott makes the playoffs first year in the league. I think that'll be a good one. I like his team, like I already said. But I'm just gonna have to say back-to-back champ over here. I think that's just got to be the prediction, right? Has to be.
That's the boldest of the bold.
The boldest of the bold, for sure. It's probably gonna be a long shot. I gotta get some good waiver pickups, I think.
Yeah, and no, I agree. Scott did pretty well. Yeah, I'll pick Kyle to miss the playoffs. Kyle's like been out kicking his coverage the last couple of years. He's been doing well. I think Kyle goes back to his
down to earth.
crash back down to the bottom where he was for so many years. Goes back to being the taco of the league. I think CJ he's done a pretty good job the last couple of years of building pretty solid teams. I think he'll make another playoff appearance.
Yeah.
I think Jeff probably has a pretty solid squad. I think he'll make the playoffs. But as tradition goes, you and I, week one matchup.
As is tradition.
I will get the schedule created hopefully tomorrow.
Okay.
But like I said, week 1 through 3 are locked in. I know I'm going to try and do what I did last year with Thanksgiving week. So
Okay.
where we kind of had, like CJ and Robert go home for Thanksgiving, and then they can, you know, bicker about fantasy. I'll match up the twins against each other, stuff
There you
like
go.
that. So that Thanksgiving can be all about beating family or beating friends. So
Perfect. I love it. What's
but yeah,
your
I'm
call for
excited
the
for
week 1 match? What do you got? We're looking at pretty even on the projection right
even.
now.
Yeah. Mm, yeah, I have running backs going against each other, with Bijan and Najee.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I hate picking fantasy matchups. I never do well with it. But what I will throw out there, I've got 3 best bets for week 1 in the NFL.
All right.
Anybody
Let's
wants
hear
to hop on board with Bud's betting here that I try to
'em.
share. So my first one is Tennessee +4 at the Bears.
Okay. Okay.
It's a combination of, I think Tennessee's a little underrated and the Bears are a little overrated. Saw a stat that number 1 overall quarterbacks are like 2-15 against the spread in their week 1 game in their since 2000.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
to me, the logic makes sense. The team gets the number 1 overall quarterback. Everyone's like, "Oh, this guy's going to be good." So they
Just
get a
come
little
out.
overhyped,
Yeah.
and the other team's motivated to. That was the number 1 pick. Maybe we should, embarrass them a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. For
So
sure.
that's my first one. My second one is I have to look at if the line. I think it's 4 now. I bet much earlier in the off season. I bet it at 4.5 and 5,
Yeah.
but I think now it's only 4. It's +4. Carolina +4 at the Saints.
Okay.
Another where I think the Saints. I think the Saints. I honestly think the Saints could be one of the worst teams in the league. I feel like their O line is just falling apart. They've been just like hanging on by a thread for years, like when they probably should have been rebuilding. Like ever
Yeah.
since Drew Brees retired, they've been just kind of like trying to like survive and go 9-8 every year. And I feel like
Yeah.
at some point the bottom's just going to fall out because they haven't drafted well enough to really keep that going.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
one
I
of
totally
like
agree.
think Bryce Young could have a little bit of a bounce back. People wrote him off and see what happens. Then my
Yeah.
third one is my favorite, and that is the Arizona Cardinals +6.5 against the Bills.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think it's another overrated, underrated. I think the Bills, they've lost a lot. The Bills lost a ton. Like
Sure.
they lost a lot of their wide receivers, lost some pieces on defense. Plus Matt Milano got hurt. He's going to be out. So they're missing like some key defenders. The Cardinals were pretty feisty last year at the end of the year. They won a couple. They won at Philly, and I think another road game they won late in the season, kind of as an underdog.
Yeah.
And then they got better with adding Marvin Harrison to the offense. I feel like they're sneaky good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I like that one. I might have to add that one.
so I've gotten really into sports betting. I like it more than fantasy, but
Yeah.
I we don't need to talk about the amount of money I have in play in week 1 bets. And that's why I like betting more than fantasy, because
Right.
I have a lot more money in that than fantasy. So
Oh, there you go.
by default, I like it more. But we'll try to maybe record a couple of these throughout the season for this league on top of the Dynasty League. So people
Yeah.
stay tuned, and if I hit you up for to come on, just say sure, why not? Don't ask me, well, why would you even want me to come on, Kevin?
It's a terrible answer. Hilarious, but it's terrible. You
Yeah.
should get on here, bro.
All right. Any final thoughts? Any parting?
That's all I got, bro.
Yeah. I'm trying to count how many years this is of the league. We started in 2009. This is I believe the 16th season of this league. So It's
Yeah.
my longest running league by far. So
Yeah, most of the
it's been a
original.
pleasure to,
Too.
yeah, been a pleasure to do this so long with a lot of you guys. And I think we still have 6 of the 8 OGs are still in the league. So we
Yeah.
had 7 out of 8 until, Colin did whatever Colin did, but we won't get into that. But, Scott, welcome to year 1 and good luck everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Good luck. See you.